Today on the official Marvel podcast, we're sinking our teeth into the legacy of Marvel Zombies. We're going to examine the comic book history and evolution of the superpowered undead with Marvel Zombies comics editors past and present like Ralph Macchio.
And issues 21 to 23 of Ultimate Fantastic Four introduced the Marvel Zombies concept, never knowing that it was going to become a gigantic phenomenon that was going to go on for years and continue right until this very day.
Plus, we've got a spooky story titled The Devil is Davy Jones, pulled straight from a classic 1950s comic.
I'm Anthony Carboni.
I'm Victoria Ying.
And this is the official Marvel podcast.
While Marvel Animation's Marvel Zombies are taking over Disney Plus with a brand new series, the undead have been terrorizing the Marvel Universe in the comics for over 2 decades.
That's right. Since their debut in 2005, Marvel Zombies haven't just stalked Earth's mightiest heroes, they've carved out their own gruesome corner of the Marvel Universe. Like seriously, if you ever find yourself traveling the multiverse, you want to steer clear of Earth 2149.
To walk us through the origin, wildest moments, and what's next for the comic book franchise, let's hear from the editor who was there when Marvel Zombies were created.
I'm Ralph Macchio. I was on staff as an editor and writer at Marvel for 35 years, from 1976 to 2011. And I continue to work for Marvel as a consulting editor on various projects, and also, of course, work on Marvel Zombies.
Yeah, he's being a bit modest here. Ralph Macchio is an absolute Marvel legend. He's edited books like Daredevil, Thor, Captain America, and a little imprint known as Ultimate Marvel, a line of comics that reimagined the Marvel Universe for the modern era.
Within that imprint, he edited a modern take on Marvel's first family called Ultimate Fantastic Four. And according to Ralph, the idea for Marvel Zombies was first presented to him by the book's writer at the time, Mark Millar, during a meeting with former Marvel Comics Vice President Bill Jemas and former Editor-in-Chief Joe Quesada.
And what happened was Bill Jemas liked to keep up on what was going on in the Ultimate line. So we had a meeting where we were going over what we were going to be doing in each of the Ultimate books for the next 6 or 8 months. I wasn't sure where Mark was going with the Ultimate Fantastic Four, but he happened to be in the city at the time, and he was up at Marvel, so he sat in on the meeting. And when Bill was coming to me to ask me what we were going to be doing in Ultimate Fantastic Four, I kind of looked over at Mark, because I wasn't sure what we were going to do, and Mark leaned into me and he said, "We're going to do zombies." So I looked over at him and I said, "Okay." So I said to Bill, "We're going to do Marvel Zombies." Bill looked kind of quizzical about it. Joe did too, because we had no idea what it was. But I didn't know if this had been percolating in Mark's mind for a long time, or if this was something that he had just popped up with spontaneously.
Luckily, both Bill and Joe were used to bizarre ideas when it came to the Ultimate Universe. After all, we're talking about an alternate reality where the Hulk was a cannibal and Captain America's son was the Red Skull.
So Bill was just kind of, okay. He trusted us because the Ultimate line was doing very, very well. And in issues 21 to 23 of Ultimate Fantastic Four, which were written by Mark and drawn brilliantly by Greg Land, Mark introduced the Marvel Zombies concept, never knowing that it was going to become a gigantic phenomenon that was going to go on for years and continue right until this very day.
That short arc in Ultimate Fantastic Four told a story where the leader of the FF, Reed Richards, discovers an alternate reality, one where the world had fallen victim to an infectious zombie outbreak, including the heroes of that Earth. And let's just say, the fans really ate it up.
The sales on Ultimate Fantastic Four were very good, as they were on all the Ultimate books. But this seemed to spike. The letters that were coming in at the time also, people in the bullpen, other editors and all, just seemed to be very interested in this concept. And it also seemed as if Mark had just touched the surface, because this was an entire Earth that had all the superheroes turned into zombies. And suddenly the possibilities opened up for all the things that we could do. And people were just intrigued enough by the concept that they said, let's give this a try in its own book.
That book was almost immediately greenlit, and it eventually became a 5-issue miniseries appropriately titled Marvel Zombies.
And we were fortunate enough because we had gotten Robert Kirkman, who was, of course, well known for The Walking Dead. And we also had gotten Sean Phillips, who was an excellent artist. And so I was having a blast as editor and talking over the storyline with Robert Kirkman.
The premise was simple. What if the cosmic threat and world devourer known as Galactus arrived to find that Earth had already been infected by a zombie virus outbreak?
I just love that idea because in my mind, Galactus kind of creates zombies himself. He makes planets into zombies because he drains them completely of their life, and there's nothing left but a husk, almost like a zombie is. So I just love the idea of what would happen if Galactus tried to eat a planet that was full of Marvel zombies. So Kirkman took that and he ran with that, and the Silver Surfer got eaten when he showed up on zombie Earth. And it was just one idea rolled into the other. You began to see that you could do this, then you realized you could do that, and it just got bigger and bigger and crazier and crazier.
According to Ralph, the creative team was pretty much given free rein. So much so that in the 2008 collected edition of Marvel Zombies, Robert Kirkman wrote this in his introduction. With every script, I tried my hardest to come up with something, anything, that would be so horrible, so disgusting they would make me change it, and it never happened. Every disgusting thing the zombies did was kept in. Nothing changed, nothing was altered, it was just bizarre and frustrating. I thought I was one sick puppy, but I couldn't come up with anything they balked at.
I thought we should just go all the way with this, and that there really wasn't anything that he had come up with that I gave the no to.
That said, they did have to establish some basic ground rules for the zombies of this world. After all, they weren't your average mindless undead.
First, and most importantly, they were superheroes and had superpowers that could still be used. As a threat, a zombie that had superpowers and could chase you by swinging by you in a web, or could grow to gigantic size, or had an armor that he could chase you, fly and go after you, was certainly much more scary than just an average person that had died and been brought back to life as just this shell that just kind of shambled around. Second, they were intelligent, they were motivated, they still had bits and pieces of their humanity that a lot of them were struggling with, because when they became the zombies, they did not initially fully give in to the zombie persona. And for certain characters, it would take longer than other characters. Some of the characters like Wolverine probably would slip into being a zombie much more easily than Spider-Man. So I think our zombies were definitely much more of a threat to the average person.
And with the heroics and humanity set in place, there was only one thing missing to make this a proper Marvel book.
There was also an element of humor in there, and that was Robert Kirkman. I certainly thought it would be a great idea that you would be chuckling at the same time you would be repelled, but it seemed to just, the idea of having a kind of really dark humor in this world seemed to arise naturally as the story was being written.
Together, this framework gave the team everything they needed. And they delivered. From a zombie Hank Pym sedating and stashing a still human Black Panther for a future snack, to zombie Luke Cage and Spider-Man playing Go Fish to Kill Time, this book truly had it all. But there was still one thing left to find out. Would readers be willing to accept this twisted version of Earth's mightiest heroes?
We had kind of beaten a path already with Ultimates, where we showed that you could take the Avengers concept and those characters, and you could really turn them on their heads and do some pretty nasty things with them as people. And that went over. That went over big time. So we thought, okay, we could do something along those lines, even if it wasn't in the Ultimate Universe. But yes, because these zombie characters, these zombie versions of the Marvel heroes were biting the heads off others and digesting them and doing just horrible things. There was always a little bit of trepidation.
On December 7th, 2005, Marvel Comics released Marvel Zombies #1. And it didn't take long for Ralph and the rest of the creative team to realize they had a hit on their hands.
They loved it. The initial reaction from fans was overall very positive. They were willing to accept this version of the Marvel characters. It seemed to be something that was just catching fire. People just loved it. They couldn't get enough of it. They were willing to accept this version of the Marvel characters. And we saw that by just letting go and doing all these hideous things with the characters, that people were reacting to it, and we could go places with the Marvel characters you couldn't go anywhere else, because we were getting such a massive public reaction to it in terms of letters and people calling in and the comic fanzines, etc. And that's when I began to realize it was the beginning of a phenomenon. However, I never realized how big this was going to be.
Almost immediately after the success of the first book, the team began discussing a follow-up. The result was Marvel Zombies: Dead Days, a one-shot prequel that showed how that Earth became infected with the zombie plague.
And it didn't stop there. Since 2005, Marvel Zombies has received 5 sequels, a crossover series with the Evil Dead franchise, 2 tie-in series for the massive Secret Wars event in 2015, 3 franchise reboots, and countless other spin-offs.
It's safe to say that Marvel Zombies are here to stay, especially now that we've seen them appearing in the Marvel Cinematic Universe with Marvel Animation's What If, and the Marvel Zombies animated series.
And even as a member of the multiversal team of Deadpool variants, the Deadpool Corps.
I think a lot of people don't even realize that the character of Headpool is the Marvel Zombies universe Deadpool.
That's current Marvel Comics senior editor Jordan D. White. And he's right. In the comics, Headpool, the zombified flying talking head of Deadpool, originally came from Earth's 2149 before joining the Deadpool Corps.
Like, he's the original Deadpool of that universe, you know, the one from Ultimate Fantastic Four and the Kirkman series. He's that Deadpool, zombified, and then just a head that can fly around.
Oh, I hadn't made that connection before. That's really cool, actually.
Oh yeah, in the comics, Deadpool is no stranger to The Walking Dead. In fact, Jordan D. White was the editor on books like Night of the Living Deadpool and Return of the Living Deadpool, 2 series where Deadpool faces off against the zombie apocalypse. On top of that, he's also edited a handful of Marvel Zombies comics, including 2020's Marvel Zombies: Resurrection. Plus, he might be the biggest zombie fan I've ever encountered.
I'm a zombie fan going way back to before the big zombie boom, before you couldn't turn on a television without seeing a zombie movie come on immediately, back when being a zombie fan was weird. So I was a big Romero zombie fan and, Return of the Living Dead and Peter Jackson's Dead Alive, things like that. I mean, being a zombie fan, it just makes me very excited to be able to work on the Marvel Zombies books and to try to make sure that the books have some of that awesome draw that the zombie movies I love have to them. Like that they are this deeply tragic story, that they have this sadness to them, but also, I mean, usually some sort of hope in the survivors. The thing I always think about when I think about zombie stories is that they kind of take the truth of our own mortality and death being a thing that is going to come to us, and they just turn up the speed. They just hit fast forward and go, yeah, death's coming. It's right over there. Like, it's right over there and it's walking towards you and you can't stop it. Like, there's no way to stop zombies. They are going to spread and everyone's going to die and everyone's going to become one, probably, depending on the version. But like, there's no way to stop them. And how do you deal with that? How does the people living deal with that? That's the big question. And so that's always I think the most important part of a zombie story to me is, how do the living deal with the undeniable truth of death?
Today, Jordan is the editor on the all-new Marvel Zombies Red Band. And even though it's been 2 decades since the Marvel Zombies debuted, Jordan says this book is the perfect place for anyone to jump in.
In Red Band, we have an entirely new origin to the virus. I don't want to say too much about it because you do learn that origin through the course of the series. It will, by the end of the series, become clear. If you haven't read the many Marvel Zombies comics, which are great and I do recommend, but if you haven't read them, you can pick up the first issue of ours and it's fresh. It's a new universe. You're going to see the beginning of the Marvel zombie virus starting here, and you're going to see the infection happen. You're going to see the world fall. The entire Marvel universe hasn't been infected when the beginning of this issue starts. So it is through this comic that you see heroes getting infected as the series goes.
Not only that, but Marvel Zombies Red Band is taking a page out of the original Marvel Zombies playbook. Remember how the original premise was essentially, what if Galactus arrived on Earth only to find that the planet had already been decimated by a zombie virus? Well, Jordan, along with writers Ethan S. Parker and Griffith Sheridan, is following the tradition of what-ifing the Marvel Universe's biggest events by starting with the dawn of the Marvel Age and the Fantastic Four.
It begins when the FF have just gone up in their rocket, and when they come back not just with powers, but as zombies. And so the entire history of the Marvel Universe unfolds from there. Each issue jumping forward through the publishing history to a different big Marvel event story. Our second issue touches on Secret Wars. Our third issue touches on the Infinity Gauntlet. Our fourth issue on Civil War. And then our fifth on King in Black. So getting the entire span of Marvel publishing through one zombie universe where we follow the whole thing through. I mean, it's fun to go full circle in that way.
Marvel Zombies Red Band is also the first explicit content Red Band book in the series.
The freedom that we have in being a Red Band book is that we can go as crazy with the gore as we want to. And again, being a zombie movie fan, I'm very, very willing to go as far as we can. In the first issue, I mean, I think it was actually even just in the script stage, we were like, well, hold on. You've got Hulk fighting zombies. He's got to just smush them. Like, we've got to just explode some zombies completely. Like, we got to just, like, liquefy them, right? Like, the Hulk has got to smash them to nothing, right? And so we got to do that, and that was some fun.
It's safe to say that Marvel Zombies comics are in good hands, but maybe keep this one away from small children.
Or if you're like me, maybe read it with the lights on, and definitely not before bed.
From a spontaneous pitch in a Marvel editorial meeting to a full-blown media takeover, Marvel Zombies has grown into one of the most thrilling and twisted corners of the Marvel Universe.
With Marvel Zombies Red Band, that legacy continues, pushing boundaries, reimagining the characters and stories we know and love, and proving that even in a world overrun by the undead, there's still room for heart, humor, and a whole lot of Hulk smashing. Anthony, what would you do if you found yourself stranded in the middle of the ocean? I mean, alone, floating on a life raft, no cell service, no land in sight, no volleyball to talk to?
I reject your premise. I would never be foolish enough to go near the ocean.
Are you afraid of the ocean?
Listen, I'm just saying, what good thing has come out of the ocean? What's the best thing that's ever come out of the ocean?
I mean, I think Finding Nemo and the little clownfish are pretty cute.
Sure.
But I think a respect for the ocean is always wise.
I wouldn't say respect.
Well, to kick off spooky season, we've got a short story from the Marvel Archives that features that exact conundrum. It's called The Devil is Davy Jones from Marvel Tales number 103, originally published in 1951.
The steel-gray sky touched the sea. Blue-green, the brine swelled, sullen and lonely beneath the cold rain, and each foamy white peak rolled back on itself, into itself, the dark Atlantic. Joe leaned on the tiller and headed the lifeboat into the wind and the waves, up to a peak, shuddering and then plunging deep into a trough of white foam. The spray came over the side of the gunwale into his face, down his neck and back. He pulled the clammy, wet life preserver tighter around him. He looked at Ted, who was lying across the forward thwart. His arm was broken, and he was unconscious. Herb was sitting next to him, just sitting and rocking, back and forth. moaning through dry, cracked lips into the wind and rain. One man unconscious, another insane, thought Joe. 3 men in a boat that was adrift, and here he sat, steering into weather. Suddenly, Herb stopped moaning and gave out with a shriek. "I'd sell my soul rather than die now. I'll sell my soul to live, devil. I want to live." "Take it easy, Herb," said Joe. "We're not going to die. We'll get picked up soon. Just you wait and see." That quieted Herb, but he went on with his low moaning. The fury of the sea seemed to increase, and jagged lightning crossed the sky and filled the air with angry thunder. Joe wondered if the devil had heard. Suddenly, a wild, keening wail filled the air. It seemed to rebound from horizon to horizon, growing louder and louder, and then as quickly as it started, it stopped. There was silence that was even more frightening. Joe let loose the tiller and dropped to the floorboards of the boat. Herb stopped moaning and sat there with his mouth open. Ted was conscious and he struggled to sit up, holding his broken arm with his good hand. A piece of paper fluttered out of nowhere. It swirled around the boat, circling 3 times, and then dropped right at Joe's hand. There was writing on it, in Old English script, and Joe read it. "We 3, Joseph Rusak, Theodore Standish, Herbert Slade, adrift in a lifeboat in the Atlantic Ocean and doomed to death, do, for the right to live 1,000 years, hereby assign our souls to the devil, otherwise known as Lucifer, Beelzebub, Satan, Elamy, Leviathan, Astaroth, and Davy Jones. In faith whereof we affix our names below." Joe looked at Herb and then at Ted. "What do you say, boys?" Herb croaked, "Water! Water!" A strange shape appeared in his hands. The cork popped off, and Herb put it to his lips and began sucking at it eagerly. Joe tried to stop him. "Stop! Herb, how do you know what it is? It might be poisoned." Herb was wiping his chin off with his dirty, oil-stained sleeve. "It's water. Real water. Here, take some." Joe took a drink and passed the flask to Ted. Then the 3 of them sat there, waiting. A cloud, black and threatening, hovered overhead. There was a thunderclap, and suddenly a white-faced figure appeared on the bow thwart. He was dressed in black, wore a derby and white gloves. "Well, gentlemen," he said. Herb cringed. Who are you?" "I have many names, as you see on that contract. I prefer to be known as Davy Jones." "The devil!" shrieked Ted. "It's the devil!" The little man in black smiled, showing a row of white teeth. "Yes, gentlemen. I overheard our friend here say that he would like to sell his soul to the devil for the right to live. I think you will all find the contract which you have there a very fair bargain. Good, hardy souls are hard to come by these days. You may all three live to be 1,000 years older than you are this day. Well? No, shrieked Ted. I won't do it. I don't want my soul to go to the devil. The little man kept his grin going. Where do you think you're destined for anyway? You haven't exactly lived a saintly life, you know. It's just that I want to make sure that I get you gentlemen all in good condition. Ted stared at Davy Jones, and the pain must have come back into his arm because he clutched it and started moaning again. Davy Jones looked at him for a long moment. Then he locked thumbs and muttered an incantation. There was a thunderclap, and then Ted yelled, "My arm! It's okay! There's no pain and I can bend it!" The devil said, "Of course! And if you sign this paper, you will all be able to live for the next 1,000 years. Think of it. A lot of people would give more than their souls for that. 1,000 years." Ted grabbed the paper from Joe's hand. "All right. I want to live. I'll sign." He started going through his pockets to find a pen. When he failed to find anything, he looked at the devil questioningly. The man in black waved his hand, and a long, pointed quill appeared in midair. As Ted reached for it, it avoided his grasp. Then it plunged itself into his hand, drawing blood. "Ouch!" cried Ted. "What'd you do that for?" "Oh, sorry to discomfort you, but this contract must be signed in blood." Ted turned white, but he grabbed the blood-dripping pen out of the air and scrawled his name on the paper. He handed it to Herb, who sat there looking at it. Herb shrieked, "No! No, I won't sign that filthy thing." "Go on, sign," said Ted. "Isn't it better to live 1,000 years than to die now?" Herb thought about this, and then signed the paper in the same way Ted had. Then Herb passed the paper to Joe. He looked at it, and then he looked at the devil. "I guess I might as well." His words were cut short as he leapt to his feet. There, on the horizon, right behind the place where the devil was sitting, he could see the bare outlines of a ship. "No! I won't sign this filthy pact. There's a ship, and I don't have to die. We're saved! We're saved!" He threw the paper over the side, but it made a long arc and found its way back into the hands of the devil. He looked disappointed. "Very well," he said. "I don't make anyone sign by force. 2 souls are better than none." So saying, he disappeared, and all there was on that bow thwart was a dry spot where the rain was just starting to fall. Joe dove for the locker where the flares were kept. He loaded the flare gun and sent up rocket after rocket that would tell the distant ship where the survivors of the SS Kensington were to be found. Ted and Herb just sat there, looking at each other. "What's going to happen to us?" Herb asked. Ted shrugged. "We'll just live for 1,000 years, have a lot of fun, and then, well..." He shrugged again. "Who knows?" Joe was at the tiller. guiding the boat in the direction of the ship, which had sent her own flares aloft, acknowledging those of the lifeboat. Soon, they would be saved. When the liner came alongside, they sent down a breeches buoy. Joe got into it first, and they hoisted him up to the main deck of the liner. They asked him questions, and he pointed to the two men in the boat. Better get them up here. The captain of the ship looked to where Joe was pointing, and then he shook his head gravely. He turned to the mate who was standing by, and he said, "The man has been having hallucinations. He thinks there are other men in that lifeboat. You'd better take him down below and feed him." Joe stood there, gripping the rail of the ship until his knuckles were white, and then he knew that Ted and Herb were doomed to live 1,000 years in agony on Earth before their souls went down to the bottom, where Davy Jones would be waiting.
62 years ago today, Tales of Suspense number 49, written by Stan Lee and illustrated by Steve Ditko, marked a major milestone in Marvel history. The first ever crossover between Iron Man and the X-Men. In the story, the Winged Wonder, an X-Man known as Angel, flies over what he thought was just another random industrial plant. Turns out, it's actually a weapons manufacturing facility owned by none other than Tony Stark, aka Iron Man. Iron Man notices Angel flying straight towards an imminent weapons test explosion. He rushes to intervene, but before he can stop him, the bomb detonates. Iron Man's suit shields him from the blast, but Angel, not so lucky. He's hit with radiation that scrambles his mind, twisting his heroic nature into something far more dangerous. Leaving Iron Man behind, Angel returns to the X-Men and shocks his teammates by announcing he's leaving the team to join their greatest enemy, the Master of Magnetism, Magneto. The X-Men try to stop him, but fail, forcing them to call on the Armored Avenger himself for help. Now it's up to Iron Man to confront Angel and bring him back to his senses. What begins as a full-blown aerial assault ultimately resolves when Iron Man uses his intellect and compassion to snap Angel out of his trance-like state, helping him regain control and return to his true heroic self. This story not only showcased the power of character-driven storytelling, but also gave us an early example of the expansive, interconnected storytelling within the Marvel Universe, a tradition that continues today in epic crossovers like Avengers vs. X-Men and Fall of the House of X, Rise of the Power of 10.
Next week on the official Marvel podcast, we're looking back on Marvel Studios' Werewolf by Night with stars Gael Garcia Bernal and Laura Donnelly, as well as director Michael Giacchino.
My love of everything that Sam Raimi has done and all of these Hammer films, I mean, all of this is just a giant mashup love letter to those movies, which I absolutely loved and lived on growing up.
That's it for today, though. Huge thanks to everyone who's left a comment, given us those 5 stars, or told a friend about us. And if you haven't yet, what are you waiting for?
This episode was hosted by Anthony Carboni and me, Victoria Ying.
The Devil is Davy Jones, narrated by Ashley Ward.
Our producers are Jasmine Estrada and Anita Flores.
Thanks to our senior manager of audio production and development, Brad Barton, and our production manager, Emily Godfrey.
Mixed by Ry Dorsey.
Our theme music is by Ida Akbal.
Our executive producers are Larissa Rosen and Jesse Berger.
As always, thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.